Oh, look at that. Brian Henderson is already on.
You talk about on the ball. Holy cow,
man. Brian, what is up? How's it going? I love that. Well, hey, guys.
One of many amazing Brians in the laundromat business, by the way.
Oh, yeah. You know what? I feel like Brian is the name of the industry, really. I mean, like, yeah, destined. Hey, welcome, guys, to the live stream with, I mean, this is like craziness right now. We have Dave, the Laundromat Millionaire Men's with us, and we have Brian Wallace, the president and CEO of the CLA with us. And I'm here. Like, what's going on here? So, hey, guys, welcome. This is awesome. Yeah. How you guys doing?
I'm excited.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can say it. I'm not sure if I have another word that better describes this, but to quote Jordan Berry, I'm pumped.
I get ragged on about that all the time.
Yeah.
I am so pumped.
Yeah, so I don't think I can type responses. I don't guess it matters, but for the comment section, I'm not sure if we're getting any more, but
oh, yours came up.
Guys? So that's you.
Oh, that's me and you. Oh, look at that. I get to type for both of us.
Oh, gotcha. So whatever you type is going to double. All right, guys, we're figuring this out just like last time. Bear with us. Bob says, sweet headphones. I'm assuming you're not talking about these. You must be talking about those pretty pink ones.
What's up, Bob? How's it going? Hey, Skip.
Hey, Skip. Nice to meet you. I don't know if I met Skip or not. Thank you, Aaron. I was wondering who CSW LLC was, and now we know. It's Aaron McLean. He's a client of mine up in Dayton.
Or Dave, thanks, man.
Detroit.
That's so nice of you.
Jordan is so handsome. Holy cow. Well, you know, I mean, I got a little man crush. So, you know.
Joe, what's going on?
That's what happens when you give somebody access to your Facebook page.
That's right, man. It's trouble. It's trouble. There's all kinds of trouble coming. Well, hey, I mean, I don't want to dilly-dally too much. We're going to let people come in, but I want to just take a second. Thank you guys for doing this with me and let me be a part of it. And I am very excited about it. And I can't wait to get to this whole thing is all about helping people either improve their laundromats if they have laundromats, or helping people get into this business the correct way. I always say it, you know, if you get into this business the right way, the sky's the limit. And if you get into it the wrong way, it can be real tough to dig your way out of it. So we're here to help you get in the right way if you're trying to get in, or if you have a business now, hey, let's work on optimizing that business. So I'm really excited about that. And man, I'm like pumped, man. I'm just so pumped that we have Brian Wallace here with us to answer questions. So Brian, I mean, can we just take a few minutes here and learn a little bit about you and about what you do with the CLA?
Sure. Well, first of all, you know, Jordan and Dave, I really appreciate you letting me into the clubhouse here. I know we're going to have some fun talking shop here over the next little while, and just really happy to be here. You know, I'm accustomed to talking shop, and so I'll do that. But yeah, my role is president and CEO of the Coin Laundry Association, which is the national trade group for the industry that's been around 60 or so years. I basically spend most of my time out on the road under normal circumstances, around the country, around the world, talking shop, observing best practices when it comes to the laundromat business. Do my best to kind of synthesize all that best information and share it. You know, share it through our webinars, our magazine, our one-on-one calls with consulting with our members, and just try to share what we've all learned. And I think that's the spirit of what you two have put together here, is how can we collectively learn more and get better. So I'm happy to play whatever role I can, helping out with questions and comments. And yeah, can't wait to get started.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I mean, I'm sure most people are familiar with the CLA, but you know, you guys have a lot of different kind of fingers out there in this industry. Can you talk about maybe a few of the different things that you guys have going on?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'll try not to make this a commercial. We'll kind of hit on some of these things along the way as we get into the questions. But yeah, we're a nonprofit trade association. We have a full-time staff here every day that is really geared toward protecting the best interest of the industry and educating the industry to become as profitable as possible. So we do that through advocacy, which is another way to say lobbying. We lobby on a lot of issues that are important to the laundromat industry. And we'll get into some examples of that along the way. Education, we do up to 4 webinars a month. We've got Planet Laundry magazine. We've got books and videos and all kinds of things along those lines. We also have what we call CLA business solutions, where we look for ways to help you run your business better. So that's property and liability insurance. We have a health insurance program. We just announced a new discount program with Paychecks for your payroll processing. We've got a partnership with Atmosphere TV for your in-store digital feed and entertainment. AMP is our digital marketing support service. So we try to think of all the things, when you run a laundromat, you're kind of a one-person band, right? You're kind of, you're wearing all the hats. And so what we try to do at the association is to have our members get engaged, sort of crowdsource these things, and be that right-hand person for you, help you wear some of those hats to be successful in the business. We also do lots of networking. We have our online forum at coinlaundry.org, which is called CLA Connect Online. Normally, we have 40, 50, sometimes as many as 60 live events a year around the country. So you're kind of doing what we're doing here today, but doing it in person, taking on a topic, having some chit chat around best practices, and just a way to kind of stitch our industry together, and knowing that, the culture of this business has always been sharing. People don't hold things close to the vest. People are very willing to share, and that's something that we try to perpetuate every day.
Hey, Brian, Joe Machuro asked, how many members are in the CLA? Do you know that off the top of your head?
It's approximately, I should mention that we're a vertical association, so we have people that aren't yet in the business and doing their research. We, of course, have owner-operators. We also have wholesale distributors in our network, as well as the industry manufacturers. And we always feel like we can get more done working together. So at the top of my head, I want to say 1,400 and change in terms of the total number of members. And you can imagine with the store owners, many of which having multiple locations, we usually say it's about 5,000 stores total that are in our network. And when we add on our magazine distribution and our opt-in email distribution, we're well into the 10 to 15,000 range. So we have a pretty good reach into the industry, and we're just appreciative that people come our way when they're trying to learn more about the business.
Great.
Awesome. Just want to say a quick hi to Stacy and Jason, and also Steve Andrews, who's on here. So welcome, guys. Super good to
CLA members, by the way. 3 CLA members: Stacy, Jason, and Steve. Good stuff.
Awesome. Yep. Yeah.
Absolutely rock stars.
Welcome, guys. Real quick, we're going to get into some more questions. I'm starting to write them down. So if you have questions, get them in there. Into the chat, and we'll compile a list, and we'll just kind of blitz through all of them. So we'll get to as many as we possibly can. But I just wanted to take a quick second before we really dive into it to let you know that already we have our next live Q&A planned. Dave and I have it planned. So it's going to be, take out your calendar app right now and just stick it in there and just reserve this time. You're going to want to be there. Trust me. So that's going to be Saturday, February 13th. And we're going to do that at 5 p.m. Eastern time. That's a Saturday, February 13th, 5 p.m. Eastern, which is 2 p.m. Best Coast time. So Best Coast, West Coast.
Yeah, guys, we when we thought about picking our next time, we're trying to mix this up with different times because we know everybody has different schedules, later, earlier, trying to factor in both coasts and the people in the middle and everything. So yeah, we wanted to do one on a Saturday. So hopefully that's a good thing for the industry and everybody isn't quite so busy. We'll see what kind of participation we get. But if you guys have any feedback, put it in the comments section, send us emails. Any way you can give us feedback. We want to try to reach as many people as we can each time we do this. And I think our tentative plan is to do one of these a month, and we'll probably have different guests and sometimes not have a guest. And every once in a while, I may even let Jordan talk. So we'll see how this goes.
Yeah, probably not though.
Probably not.
Yeah. Beast Coast, East Coast. Daryl. I'm not going to admit publicly that I like that. So.
I see Luke Williford's on here. He's under a what do they call it? A handle. He's under the Wash House. Then we got Steve Andrews on here under the Wash House in Nashville. Oh. So I'm not sure if they're on the same team or if they're like opposing.
Oh man.
Let's get them National League, American League baseball thing. I'm not sure what's going on here.
That's right.
It could be good. It could be bad. There, I fixed it is on.
Yeah. Hey, what's up, Jacob? He was on the podcast last week.
Yeah, I just got done watching that. I was going to say, remind me of his name, Jacob.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so let's jump into some questions. You guys good with that? Anything else you need to say before we start going? Okay.
Oh, one thing I did want to mention real quick.
How did I know that you had more to say?
I told you I'm not going to let you talk.
Yeah.
Guys, since we have 3 people on here, one of the things we talked about was if you guys want to direct your question towards a certain person, when you post it in the comment section, just post that person's name. Hey, Dave, this. Hey, Jordan, that. If you don't care who answers it, then fine, just slap it up there. But if we're not all 3 going to be able to answer all the questions, definitely. So if you're really wanting to direct it towards a certain person, have at it. It's not going to offend any of us. And, Brian won't always be on these. So if you guys want to direct more questions at him tonight, he said he's prepared to be peppered. He said he can handle it. He put on some bulletproof vest before we got started. So he said, let him have it, guys. So that was the only housekeeping I had. Jordan, back to you.
I just think it's very cute that Brian Henderson over here is trying to bring Central Coast time. He said Central time, Essential time. So I don't know, Brian. I don't know, man.
Holy cow. Now you know why we need a 90 minutes, Brian.
That's right. Okay.
All right, let's do this, people. Let's do this.
First question is this that popped up was, and maybe Brian, you can start tackling this one, is those businesses that pop up on Biz Buy Sell. Some of them, look like they're maybe from distributors selling them. I don't know. Do you have any input on, are those legit? Are they, should you be looking to buy those ones?
Well, one of the more common questions that I get is, where do I find laundromats for sale? Okay, and I think that there's a number of different resources that you can look to. I think being well networked locally is a really good idea. So whether it's to the local distributors or other store owners, kind of have your ear to the ground to try to find out when things are coming to market. In many markets, there are either laundry equipment distributors or brokers that have an expertise in the laundromat business, and they're carrying listings. And if you're in a smaller town, obviously you may not be lucky enough to find a broker that has the specialty in the laundromat industry. So on Biz Buy Sell, just like anything else, you've got listings that some of our best broker members carry listings there, and some maybe aren't quite as fleshed out. So I think all the principles remain the same. Evaluating the opportunity. So regardless of where you get the lead, I think the homework more or less remains the same. And sometimes you're in a market where there's just a flurry of stores for sale, and sometimes you're waiting a long time. So my advice is always to be patient. Don't jump on the first deal, and treat every one of those individually and assess it on its own merits.
Yeah. I think that's good advice because, Stacy even mentioned in here that she's even seen her own laundromat listed on Biz Buy Sell. And a lot of times it's a lead generation tactic for distributors or brokers or something like that. And so, so you just assess it by case. My kind of opinion on that, if you're looking to buy maybe your first laundromat, is when you see them listed, give those brokers a call and start to feel them out, the ones who are listing it, and try to get on their email list. So when they do get stuff in your area that you're looking for, you're going to get those deals first. And the other little tip I have for those Biz Buy Sell ones, or BizBin or whatever, those websites that are kind of more generic small business ones, is the laundromats that are listed by an agent or a broker who aren't necessarily laundromat agents or brokers those are the ones that might be really good deals because those agents or those brokers don't have laundromat buyer lists. The laundromat brokers that list those laundromats, typically they've already sent those laundromats through their email lists and everybody's passed on them for one reason or another. It doesn't mean they're not a good deal, but probably not the best deal out there. Otherwise somebody would have scooped them up. But a regular real estate agent or maybe a commercial agent or broker who's listing a laundromat, they may not have a laundromat specific buyers list. And so those might be some of the best deals. So something to look out for there.
Right.
Awesome answer. Maybe Dave, you could start tackling this one first. Bob asked a question. Hey, if you got unused space in your laundromat, what are some of the things you can do to optimize that space? Maybe make it revenue generating, or should you do something different with it?
Well, I think it depends on what your thought process is. I mean, if you're thinking along the lines of vending and ATMs and internal store use, you got your vending machines and things like that. I'm not sure. I didn't totally understand his question. I'm not sure if he was asking if he had like an adjacent space in his building. That I know people that have had great success both in their laundromat and in adjacent spaces that have also put in like the cell phone stores and accessory stores, the places where they fix the screens and things like that. Those I've seen those inside of laundromats, and I've seen them adjacent to laundromats, and they do really well. So I'm not fully sure how he's asking the question, but that's something I've saw people have great success with.
Yeah, the way I hear, and Bob, feel free to clarify in the comments there if you want to, but the way I'm hearing is that maybe he has like his machines are in there, but there's some space that he could do something else with. Should he put folding tables in? Should he put video games in? Should he put, benches in? Or is there some way that he can utilize that space? That's kind of what I was.
Okay. Yeah, Bob, I would tell you that in my opinion, more laundromats than not across the country do not have ample folding space and ample seating. So I don't know your specific store. Bob's a client of mine. I haven't actually been to his location. But if you have unused space, and a lot of people look at seating and comfort and folding table space. They see it as a luxury, and I just don't see it that way. I focus on what I call throughput, getting people in, getting people comfortable, getting them out. But you don't ever want to see a situation where someone's folding out of a dryer, or folding on top of a machine, things like that. So I don't know if you have ample folding space and seating, but those are two things that are oftentimes neglected. And so I would look at that first before I even look at anything that would generate any revenue. Because one of the mistakes people make in our industry quite often is they don't look at those things as generating revenue. And the reality is they do, whether you realize it or not. You're leaving tons of revenue on the table by not having ample folding space and ample seating. So that's something that you should take a look at.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. And, because there's one of the things that's cool about laundromats is you can, there's a ton of different revenue streams you can include in your laundromat. I mean, it's a really kind of an underappreciated perk of the laundromat business because you can generate revenue from ATM machines or snack sales or, lots of different things. But your number one revenue generator is more than likely going to be your washers and your dryers. And so you need to optimize your space to get people using those. And then if you have space left over, then you can talk about other revenue generating sources, I guess. But you want to make, like you said, Dave, you want to make sure you have enough folding, you have enough seating for people so that wash dry revenue is optimized.
Yeah, guys, I would add to that, we get that question a lot, what are the common pairings or what else can you do? And, we've gone over the years through these different sort of add-ons or things that were fads, from tanning beds to cafes to this or that or the other thing. And I kind of aligned with you guys. I think focusing on the core business makes the most sense. That's what you're there to do. And so if you can do things that can further support that, again, if you've already ticked the box for ATM and ticked the box for great vending, how can you make your customers happier? sometimes these little cutout spaces I've seen people use as ancillary counter space, like especially for wash, dry, fold, and just kind of
Sure.
improve that customer experience in the store. But stick to the core business is my best advice.
Do you guys have any insight on how many machines per folding table space you need? Somebody asked that question. Joe asked that question. How much folding do you need? How much is enough?
The answer is the same with parking. You can never have enough.
Yep.
And I don't mean that to be a flippant answer, but it really has to be sized, I think, for those peak periods as best you can. Just like you want to make sure that you've got enough washers and dryers for those peak periods. Not so much Tuesday morning, but Saturday morning, you want to be ready to roll. And increasingly, I'm finding that customers, this is even pre-COVID, they want their own space in the world, right? So they kind of want their own. So whether it's multiple smaller folding tables or having dividers or things where they can kind of feel like they've got their own space, I think goes a long way. And so when it comes to laundry carts, folding tables, and parking spaces, the real answer is as much as you can manage is going to improve the customer experience.
Yeah. Okay. Well, hey, you asked for it. So Dan wants to know, you have any input on transparency and machine pricing from distributors? Specifically, Brian?
Well, I don't know that there's a lack of transparency. I'm sure when it comes time to buy equipment, you either have an existing relationship with the distributor, or maybe you shop it to a number of local distributors, and they shoot you a price, and maybe you haggle, maybe you don't. You compare features and benefits. So I don't know if there's a lack of transparency, meaning not knowing what the pricing is, but I do think that one of the most important relationships that you build in the business is finding that distributor that you're aligned with, that you see the market in the same way, and that you're in a position to work together and help one another. That's just a very valuable connection once you find the right particular fit. So would not be unusual to go out and shop pricing on machines and deciding whether you're going to buy on price or buy on service or value, which is a combination of all those things.
Yeah, I'll take that question and run with it a little bit. I know this isn't the question that Dan asked, but I'm gonna just throw my 2 cents worth out on this. My relationship with my equipment distributor, and I don't use the word relationship lightly, I could easily attribute that to 33 to 50% of my success in the industry. And there's a difference in different levels of success. And so when I network with, coach, and consult throughout the industry, I consistently see, and this myself is included in this, I consistently see that people that are operating at what I consider the top of the industry, they understand that there's a lot more to an equipment distributor relationship than getting a quote, purchasing equipment, and then installing it. There is way, way, way more to it than that. So if your only focus is price, I mean, that's certainly your choice. But the reality is, I think you're probably selling yourself short on the opportunities in the industry to just go around getting quotes from distributors and beating each other up and playing them against each other. Because not only are you not building relationships, they're not stupid. These are smart business people. And the reality is they're going to know you're doing that. They talk to each other. They communicate with each other. They're business people themselves. And you're probably saving yourself pennies and costing yourself thousands of dollars. So I know that wasn't exactly the question that's asked, but I think it's vitally important for us in the industry to understand that.
I would love to play a little bit of a devil's advocate here, because I do think, in my view of this, is that it is not, especially coming new into the industry, it is not clear that prices are negotiable. It is not clear that, there's a lot of margin built in for distributors, and they have a lot of wiggle room. And also, and I think, Dave, you had the benefit of, you found a really good distributor. All distributors are not equal. And I would say there are a lot of distributors out there who do not provide very much value to the owners, particularly new owners. So finding a good distributor is crucial, probably more crucial than getting a good price, but it's easier said than done for somebody who's new because there isn't transparency in the distributorship model. There's no starting price posted online almost anywhere. And I do think that gives distributors a leg up over owners, just to be devil's advocate.
Well, I don't think anyone would put a price on a product in a vacuum, right? So, are you getting 6 months of consulting and plans and pro formas and demographic analyses and that expertise, or is someone drop shipping you a piece of equipment and you're on your own? Just like, again, any value proposition, comes with, what are your needs? You can imagine I've been asked this question tens, thousands of times is, what equipment should I buy? And I think, first of all, it's the wrong question. That ought to be maybe the 37th question that you ask in your process. But certainly part of that is kind of getting, especially if you're new, kind of coming up with a list of the things that are going to be important to you going into this project. And part of it may be, getting acclimated to the business and learning the basics, and go out and interview the 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, distributors in your market, and look for the people that you align the best with and that have the items that you're looking for. Some old grizzled veterans say, I don't need any of that. I just need the iron. I'm going to do it myself. I'm going to do the installation and all the rest. That's a lot different than a first timer that needs to learn the business from the ground up. And I imagine that when you look at pricing, just like anything else in life, it's going to reflect the level of service and the value that's being provided in that analysis.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that. However, there's not very many industries left anymore where you just don't know the price going into it until you start building a relationship. It's an old model, and not even used car salesmen do that, right? And so I think that's the problem that people have with it. I'm not saying right, wrong, whatever, but I do think that that's the problem that people have with this model, is that it does not feel transparent and it does not feel trustworthy especially to new people, because they don't know what to ask, right? I didn't know what to ask when I got into the industry, and I talked to 3 or 4 different distributors, but I couldn't tell the difference between them. And I think that's the problem, right? So, well, awesome answers. Let's move on because there are a lot of questions rolling in and we're getting behind. Okay. Steve wanted to know, for Brian specifically, do you guys have does the CLA have any say or opinion on moving laundromat workers up in the COVID vaccine line? Since we've been essential workers, essentially our employees and attendants have been essential workers. Has there been any work with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been working on that over the last couple of months. I think when I gave my intro, I talked about advocacy being one of the kind of 4 pillars of what we do here at the association. So long story short, yes, I have been engaged in that, particularly with this advisory committee that was helping the CDC with recommendations on, who ought to get prioritized when. So because of the work we did last year to have us formally designated as an essential business through the CISA guidance, which was not an inexpensive or an easy process, by the way. But they're carrying over those same definitions to this phase 1B of vaccination, which includes essential workers. Now, of course, essential workers, that's tens of millions of workers across the country. And so we've created, in fact, if you're on the Planet Laundry weekly email tomorrow morning, you're going to see an update on that, including a downloadable press release that you can use locally to make the case, as well as a letter template. And the reason that we decided to do that is that the decision making within that pretty broad group of next people up to be vaccinated, those decisions are being made at the local level, whether the state level, but more likely a local public health department. And as I say in the press release, laundromat workers, they risk being overlooked because rightfully, the grocery store operators, clerks come to mind, and the delivery drivers and the public transit folks, and all these folks certainly are very much essential, but just laundromat workers doesn't come immediately to mind So we need to help educate that. So we've got resources on that that we're making available. And so yes, long story short, we've been engaged in that over the last several weeks, as well as all the other issues related to remaining essential and the restrictions that we're kind of working with in different markets in terms of laundromats being open for business in the face of the pandemic. So you are essential, your attendants are essential, and that's a message that you can communicate locally and say, hey, while you're vaccinating all these essential workers, let's not forget the laundromat folks that are on the front lines every day providing a basic public health service at the laundromat.
Yeah, great answer. And I think that, laundromat workers are not thought of as public health workers generally, like you said. And I think that's a great way to put it and a great way to look at it. And, I think we all appreciate the work that the CLA is doing to help us navigate the whole COVID situation, right? It's like unprecedented, and having the CLA be an advocate and also kind of a guide throughout that, I think has been awesome.
I hope that's a good reason to be a member and support your profession, because it takes an enormous amount of resources to be successful with that work. So we're there on your side. We're doing that type of work every day. A quick aside, Jordan, just because it came across my desk just now, I've been in touch with the U.S. Coin Task Force on a regular basis, and my contact at the San Francisco Fed confirms that now all the coin allocations have been removed. So as we were dealing with the coin shortage throughout the year, I was engaged with them as well as our friends at the Mint. And so I'm happy to say that the allocations came off the quarters November 15th. And not that you guys need nickels, but the nickels have been released as of tomorrow. So we just look for things that are important to our business, and we do our best to represent the industry when those things come up.
Awesome. Yeah, that coin shortage hit a lot of laundromats hard. So okay, awesome answer, Jimmy. I'm gonna kind of assume, Jimmy, this is what you were asking, but he kind of wants to know pros and cons of the coin and card systems, and maybe if you have a preference to one or the other, you can share that. And if not, what are the pros and cons? Anybody want to take that? Dave, you want to start with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
I think there's I have some pretty strong feelings about that, actually. One, I think I'm not in a position, and I never will try to tell you what your business should be or shouldn't be. And if you are under the impression that something I've said comes across that way, then you've misunderstood me, or I haven't been clear enough. So that's the first thing I'll say. The next thing I'll say is, when it comes to a payment system of any type, I have my opinions of what I do in my store. And of course, my opinions and how I make my choices is going to be what I recommend my clients do. And we could talk about this for a half an hour because it's a pretty big issue. But the reality is we have to remember that there's a bunch of different business models. There's the smaller unattended stores. There are the higher volume unattended stores. There's partially attended stores, fully attended stores, and I can go on and on forever. But the reality is what payment best fits you is a lot of times predicated on your management style, the organization that you've built or not built, intentionally or unintentionally. And I think it has more to do with that and your volume, because I believe volume is a big part of it. I think in most situations, coins work fine for the smaller, the lower volume businesses, and you can decide if that's quarter or dollar coin. There's pros and cons to both, and I don't want to get into that. But the coin side of things tends to be the lower volume stores. I don't know, you could say $2,000 or $3,000 a week probably is a rough ballpark of where you should probably be coin, and it's probably not worth maybe investing in the payment systems. In my opinion, if you get anything above $3,000 or $4,000 a week into the 5, 6, 7, 8 range, hybrid is typically the best way to go, in my opinion, which is where the majority of my stores are. And I'm talking self-serve business, not all the other aspects to my business. The hybrid system, what I use is the dollar coin and the CCI fast card, but it doesn't really matter the brand. I go with the hybrid system. And so I've built my payment system in a way where I want to give customers options. And I choose, and I'm not saying this is wrong to do it another way, but I choose to build my business model and the convenience of payment systems around not what's convenient for me as far as management of my business, but what's convenient for my customers and what I believe reduces the barrier to do business with me. So there are some customers that prefer to use coin. Are they going to use you or not use you if you don't have coin? If you have other payment systems, you won't know until you make that decision. But I just choose to not make them make that choice. If they prefer coin, then I want to give them that option. And I do believe that dollar coin is a much better option, especially for our future, for vended laundries than quarters. Just, it's a numbers game. There's a lot of different payment systems. Like I said, I could go on for hours. There's a lot of different payment systems.
He will too.
I will. I do believe that phone pay is our future. Absolutely. But I also believe that it's going to take us 15 to 20 years to get there at a very high penetration rate. And so my personal opinion and what I've done in my stores is to go with a hybrid system, which is dollar coins, fast card CCI, which is the reason for that is the swipe at the terminals themselves, which I think a lot of people are still very used to, multi-generational thing. I'm 44 and I don't remember a time when we weren't swiping cards. But the nice thing about the CCI fast card system and other systems is that they also have the phone pay app. So in my opinion, that type of a payment system setup hybrid is the best of all worlds. And does it have a few pros and cons? Sure, absolutely. No system is perfect. In my opinion, if you get anything above $10,000 to $12,000 a week in revenue, it doesn't make sense to do coins, even dollar coins in that environment, because you're going to be even if it's dollar coins and you've increased capacity by 75% in your money boxes, you're still going to be in a situation where you're having to collect dollar coins out of your store every 2 or 3 days, which is just unacceptable to me. So if you can,
you could develop.
I really think it depends on the volume of business you do and how you prioritize. But I say this all the time, and I passionately believe this. The beauty of being an entrepreneur and a business owner is I get to choose what my business looks like. Nobody can tell me what that looks like. They can give me choices, but at the end of the day, it's my decision. And I don't think it's wrong to make the decision of management and ease of management is the reason for my payment system. If that's what's best for you as a business owner and you feel that's best for your business and you want to make decisions in that way, that's fine. That's not what I do. I do it based on removing barriers to entry. I want to make it as easy as possible for my customers to do business with me.
Well, Jordan, I'm brand agnostic, which I think helps with this particular question. There's no question that the industry is moving away from quarters as the only form of payment. So we can kind of start with that. And I think whether it be the in-store card, credit card, debit card, in some cases EBT, mobile pay, phone pay of other varieties, I think there's a couple of drivers that we ought to identify. On the one hand, there's some benefits, to the owner operator that they're going to think about. Are they working in the store every day and maybe they don't need a lot of additional convenience or internal controls or that type of additional eyes on, or maybe they're got a store out of state, or they got a multiple store operation. So from a tracking standpoint, that could be a mover. But on the consumer side, consumers they've made their decision, right? That's already well underway. And we could just use the facts here. We do an annual survey that gets into all kinds of benchmarking. There's about 56% of laundromats now that have quarters as the only form of payment. And you can imagine that's the lowest that number has been. There's another tranche that are using some form of hybrid, one or the other, multiple forms of payment, that gets you up to about the 85 to 90% mark. And then the balance are strictly card only, meaning no quarters or coins, I should say, whatsoever. So, I think one of the other drivers that's really important is vend price, particularly as the equipment mixes have been moving to the much larger equipment. I think this is a practical matter, and Dave sounds like he addresses this with dollar coin in part. But when $3 or $4 used to be a very high vend price back when I got in the business in '92, now having $7, $8, $10, $12 vends certainly happen all the time. And so, there's some practical considerations to that. But I think most people are looking at some option. And when we did a survey, Jordan, about the coin shortage, 40% of our respondents said the coin shortage had them looking for additional payment methods in their stores.
Yeah. I think it drove a lot of people to. I think it was kind of a wake up call for everybody who was coin only. Luke said he did the wife test basically, and Luke Williford, and he said, let's talk to her about how she liked being married to a coin store guy versus a card store guy. And I thought that was pretty funny. Okay, we got a lot of questions here. Steve wants to know, Dave, you and I, what are the benefits of marketing and social media marketing, and should you put in a lot of stock into that, or is it not that important?
Oh my goodness. I think it's probably one of the most underutilized marketing in general, but especially digital marketing is probably the most underutilized resource in our industry that we have available to us. And I think, unfortunately, I think a lot of people don't realize it. There's a certain, how do I say it? There's a certain comfort that our industry has taken in knowing that our customers talk to each other. Our customers tend to live in apartment complexes and trailer parks, and not so much single family homes. And I'm talking self-serve business, and so they tend to live a little tighter to each other, and they communicate and talk more. And that's still true. That's not going away. But the reality is, I think there's a lot of situations where people are leaving thousands and thousands of dollars a week on the table by not taking marketing seriously. You may be happy with your business at $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a week, but if you invested consistently over a few years, a small percentage of your income, I think you'd be shocked to find the return. And I can speak for me personally that the first 5 or 6 years I was in the industry, I was doing what I call old school marketing: postcards, flyers, every door, direct mail, whatever it's called. Those types of things. And the fact of the matter is they didn't work very well, and they certainly weren't efficient. And when you look at whether it's, SEO organically, or you look at pay-per-click marketing on Google AdWords, or I think they changed the name now, whatever it's Google Ads or whatever it's called. When you start to invest in those things consistently, the return on investment is through the roof. And then the other thing I'll say to that is there's a monstrous difference in DIY, do it yourself, digital marketing, than there is hiring a professional organization, especially one that is niche to our industry and understands how to digitally market a laundromat. And so obviously, if you don't have a quality product, then your marketing doesn't really matter a whole lot. But I think we're all assuming that there's a high quality product here. And the reality is, in my opinion, this is one of the most underutilized resources in our industry. And it's part of the reason that I do things like this, is to get the word out. Because there are a few companies that specialize in niche in our industry that are digital marketing rock stars. They understand how to do this. Is there an investment? Yes, there absolutely is. But the difference in an expense and an investment is an investment pays for itself. An expense doesn't. So I don't even know if I said that correctly, but if you're not doing digital marketing, or you're doing it yourself, unless you're a professional digital marketing person or agency, you need to look into making that investment. And I think your ROI will be astronomical.
Yeah. I think that's great. And I think you made a really great point that, first and foremost, I would say before you get into investing, it'll end up being an expense if you don't have a good product to market, right? If your laundromat is not if you're not running it well, if you're not keeping it clean, if your employees aren't trained well, it's going to be money thrown away, because people might come to your laundromat one time, but if they don't have a great experience, that'll be it, right? So get your house in order. And then I think everything you just said was wonderful. Dave, you use Spinner Marketing, right? And you've had a great experience with those guys. You'd highly recommend them?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
absolutely. I've used them for a few different businesses, my consulting business, and I'm using them for my stores now. And I've been absolutely blown away. And obviously, Jordan does digital marketing through his company, Laundromat Resource. I don't use him personally, but the only reason I don't is because I already had Spinner. And when you find something that works, you just get out of people's way and let them go. But I have no doubt that Jordan doesn't do anything halfway. So, I would recommend looking at them both. And I suspect that they both serve our industry very well. And there may be other companies out there. And if there are that I'm just not aware of, I apologize. At the end of the day,
I'll speak up for CLA.
Go ahead.
Shout out to Spinner and Dennis, longtime friends of the association, member company. So they do an awesome job. We launched last year a partnership with a company called AMP.
Yep.
I've done some terrific digital marketing for laundromats, hundreds of them now, and our members are really liking it. It's very simple, couple of different choices to go from, and whether it's just your website. I think if you had to do one thing right, it's your Google listing, and this is where people are looking for the laundromat near me. And so if the Google listing is not perfect, you're really spinning your wheels. And we can also help with reputation management and the Google 360, recording in your store. So just check it out at the website, coinlaundry.org. Look at our CLA business solutions, and AMP is one of them. So the good news, Jordan and Dave, is that I've been doing this a long time. There used to be really nowhere to turn when it came to laundromat marketing. Laundromat marketing was an oxymoron. So now there's just a whole lot of resources available, and the most successful laundromat owners I know advertise the heck out of their businesses. Absolutely.
So Brian, what do you think about, because this is something I'm actually more passionate about than the question, what do you think about people utilizing DIY marketing and DIY websites and things like that, and seeing it as a cost savings versus hiring pros to do it?
Well, like a lot of things in business and in life, I think you're either in or you're out, and doing it part way, you just get the corresponding results. And so, one of the things that's made laundromat owners great over the years is they are frugal, and they are careful, and they are do-it-yourselfers to a large degree. But I think there's certain aspects of the business where it pays to get some professional input. So we have members that are professional digital marketers, and believe me, I listen to what they have to say. So, I just think that if you want to do it right, and again, we're not talking about big dollars. They used to talk about 3 to 5% of laundromat sales on marketing. With the tools that are available today, and at the prices at which they're available, you can make a lot of noise at that level. And what I try to tell our members is at least make sure that people are looking for you can find you, right? We can at least get that much accomplished. And if you do any of the things that have just been mentioned, you're light years ahead of your competition. And there's a window. I don't know when that window is going to close, but right now, chances are your competitors are doing little to no marketing. And so if you're looking for competitive advantage, that's one that's really easy to take advantage of.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The last thing I'm going to say real quick is that there's a difference in advertising and marketing. Jordan, have any thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, yeah. So, well, first of all, real quick, I just wanted to say before I forget, because I know I'm going to forget because I'm getting old. I think Brian hit it right on the head, is that your Google listing is,
absolutely,
you're going to show up on Google Maps and Apple Maps first and foremost, probably 80% of the time at least. And so, with our marketing company, the very first thing that we do is we make sure you have a Google My Business, you've claimed it, and it is updated, and it's got recent photos in. And, if you can start getting some positive reviews on those, all the better. So nailed that. So your question was difference between advertising and marketing. Yeah. So
I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I did.
You did, man. Well, at least you're letting me talk a little bit. Yeah. So, with marketing, essentially what you're trying to do is you are trying to let people know, who you are, and you're trying to build a relationship with them, right? When you're advertising, this is the way I think about it, at least. When you're advertising, you're letting them know, what you have to offer for them. And when you're marketing, you're building a relationship with somebody. And, so but both I think are very important, and both can be done in organic ways and in paid ways. But I think there's huge opportunities in both for laundromat owners right now, because I think we're a little bit behind. Generally speaking, we're a little bit behind the times in terms of marketing and in advertising. So I think that's why both of you guys are saying this is a big opportunity. If you're not doing this right now, it's a huge opportunity. And it's a very, both marketing and advertising, I mean, they're complex things now, right? And so, pay for the sophistication. Somebody else spent their time and their resources to learn and figure out, and you're going to get a much better product and a better return on your money, even if you do it yourself for cheaper, in my view. So.
Absolutely. I agree completely. The best way I've heard it said is advertising is telling people where you are. Marketing is telling them who you are.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So do some marketing and advertising. And the other thing I would say is your website, which kind of goes right along with it, right? But your website could be your potential customer's very first experience with you. So I do think another huge win for a lot of laundromats is just getting a fresh update on your website. If your website looks like it was built in the 90s or even in the early 2000s, it's going to show, and that is going to leave an impression on the customer. So you want to have a really good impression, and that's going to be their first impression of you before they even walk in your doors, before they meet your well-trained, smiling faces of your attendants, before they see your, spotless laundromat and all that. They're going to see your website. And if you don't impress them there, they may never come see what you have going on inside your laundromat. So
I know we don't want to hammer this too much, but I see our website and our digital marketing presence in general, I see it as a lot like a bathroom. When it comes to a laundromat, people don't expect much from a laundromat bathroom, but wow, what an opportunity to wow them. And so they don't expect much from our website and our digital presence. What an opportunity to wow them, because everything in life is relative, right? I mean, if they go on Google, they expect impressive things. If they go into a fancy restaurant, they expect a nice bathroom. When they go into a laundromat, they're just impressed that your machines are working, and maybe there's somebody working that cares. But they don't expect anyone to put any attention into the bathroom. And so I spend heavily on my bathrooms. I invest heavily on that, because when they walk in there, it's just one more opportunity to blow them away. And I see digital marketing and our digital presence in general as the same thing. I think it's greatly underutilized, and I think it's greatly underappreciated, which just tells us that the opportunity is monumental.
Okay. Market. That's the long story short. Do some marketing. Get a good website. Okay. How about this? This is a question for both of you guys that came in from Daryl. He wants to know, what do you guys see? Where do you see this industry going? What's the future trajectory? Is there more pickup and delivery, wash, dry, fold? Is there something different? Tell us the future. Open up your crystal balls, and you both got the crystal ball head here. Rub it up. Tell us what's going on here.
We come pre-made with that. Well, I guess I can kick it off. I mean, we could talk about the future of the industry, and I get invited to give talks on that topic all the time. And most of them are pretty evident. And with COVID, by the way, I think most of these existing trends have simply accelerated. Whether it be full service laundry, wash, dry, fold, commercial accounts, pickup and delivery. We talked earlier about transition on payment systems, and stores are getting better. It's going to be a lot more competitive out there. Many appreciate competing with rundown stores, and as you should. But I think that the bar is being raised. I think that there's going to continue to be a major. I've always called it consolidation from within. Going from primarily single store operators. I'm not saying thousands of store chains are being rolled up like so many industries have been, but certainly a bigger move to multiple store operation, and all the technology that we've been touching on, I think, supports that growth in multiple stores. The networked machines and the payment systems and the camera, being able to look into the stores on a digital basis. All these things are supporting this multiple store, concept. So I think there's going to be more full service laundry. I think that the stores are going to continue to improve in appearance. I think certainly equipment capacities are getting bigger. And I think we're going to be seeing more and more attention paid to our business. I got to tell you guys, the amount of new investor interest that has come through our doors here is always impressive. And many of you are in the feed that are just looking at the business. But since COVID, the proverbial phone is ringing off the hook. People are looking for something to do for themselves, by themselves. And they're looking for things that are recession resistant, in this case, pandemic resistant.
Yeah, I have seen that. My phone is literally ringing off the hook. I'm doing 10 to 15 consulting calls a week right now, and to a point where I'm going to have to lower my time slots because but it makes a lot of sense, right? We have a very attractive industry because we stayed up. This one silver lining of this pandemic is that it has proven that our industry is not just essential as classified by the government, but it's essential, right? It is essential. And so the business is relatively stable. We saw tons of other businesses close their doors, not be able to stay open. A lot of those sadly will never open back up. And yet throughout this whole thing, almost all laundromats stayed open and were able to serve their communities. And like you mentioned before, Brian, provide a public health service to communities. And that's attractive to people who are looking for solid, stable businesses, people who are looking for cash flow. I talk to a ton of real estate investors all the time. They're always, chasing cash flow. And I tell them all the time, I'm a real estate investor too, but the average real estate deal cannot touch the average laundromat deal in terms of cash flow. And so it's just a very attractive model, I think, for a lot of people. So really excellent points. Man, we still have a lot of questions. Here's one that really hits close to home. If you guys don't know my story, when I first got in the industry, I lost a lot of money early on. I made some bad decisions, learned a lot of very difficult and expensive lessons. And so I talked to in my coaching, I talked to a lot of people who are afraid to get in the business because they're afraid to lose money. So maybe you guys can help us out here and talk to us about, what if you buy a store and it's losing money, you're bleeding money? What can you do? What are your options?
Dave, I'll let you go first this time.
Yeah. Well, I think this is what we should always be doing all of the time, whether you're losing money or making money, because in either scenario, you're probably leaving money on the table. And what that is what entrepreneurs always have done and always will do in every industry, is look for problems, solve the problems, look for market differentiators, opportunities to differentiate yourself from the plain Jane, stereotypical laundromat. And that's not an insult on anyone or anything or any type of business model in the industry. But the reality is, whether you're unattended or attended, you're running drop off, pickup and delivery, you got a staff of 600 and 5,000 stores. You're the Taj Mahal of all laundromats and have gold plated couches. At the end of the day, we can always do things better. We can always learn from each other. There's always better ways to do things. We never have everything all figured out. And at the end of the day, if we approach the industry that way, then we're going to be probably far ahead of our market in 99.9% of the cases. So I'm a big believer in focusing on market differentiators. So I want to have every competitive advantage possible. I don't want to have every competitive advantage compared to my competitors. Those are two different things, because if you're only comparing yourself to your competitors, then chances are you're probably a little bit better than your best competitor. And in a lot of cases in the industry, that's a pretty low bar. I want to only compete with myself. I want to compete with the best in the industry that are in other markets that I meet at places like Clean Show and Excellence in Laundry and CLA Connect forums. And I want to hear what they do and how well they do it. And if they were my competitor, what would they do to kick my butt? Because I want to do that whether I have them as a competitor or not. So I've become pretty passionate in the last couple of years of building my stores into what I call uncompetable laundromats. And some people take that as incredibly arrogant. But what I'm really trying to do is I'm trying to build my business model, and I'm going to trying to see what my ceiling is. And I want to learn from the best in the industry. And I want to build my store in a way, and this is just a theoretical. That's why I said people take it as arrogant. But the reality is I want to build my businesses operationally and facilities-wise to a level that the only thing someone could do to compete with me would be to equal me. They cannot exceed the value proposition that I bring to my market. And whether they ever actually get 50% of me or 20% of me, I don't care, because they're not the barometer. The barometer, and I see this in my own personal success in life, my barometer is my potential. And one thing I've learned at 44 years old is the more I accomplish, the more I didn't realize how much potential I have. And I just see, personally I'm referencing, but I see that in my businesses too. The better I make my businesses and I think they're good, the reality is there's a bunch of stuff I'm missing. There's a bunch of things I can do better. And it just comes down to being passionate about the industry, wanting to learn from everyone else. And, you know, they say whether you're a mixed martial artist or you're a power lifter or whatever, there's always somebody bigger and badder than you. You never are the biggest and the baddest. There's always at least one that's bigger and badder than you. And I look at business that way. And it's what drives me. It's not my competitors. It's the idea that I make up in my mind of what a competitor could be. So I don't know if that makes any sense, but
I think it makes a ton of sense. Yeah. Brian, do you want to add anything to that, or?
No, that's pretty solid. You can imagine, all the calls I've taken over the years, kind of go through a diagnostic conversation, which you guys probably do with your clients to try to kind of figure out what's wrong. But, it's a simple business, but it's not easy, right? Those are two very different things.
Yep.
It's very evident what makes a store successful. And like any diagnostic, if you're short net, you either got to reduce expenses or increase revenue, hopefully both. And those things are pretty apparent in the typical laundromat. So you got to give people a better place to do the wash.
Yeah. All right. Here's an interesting question. Stacy asked about all these franchises that are starting to pop up here. Wave Max, you mentioned Tide, maybe jumping in with laundromats too. Do you guys see that as a trend going forward? Do you see that as a good thing for the industry, a bad thing for the industry? Are you totally agnostic about it, Brian? What do you guys think about these franchises?
Yeah, I mean, in my 28 years or so, I mean, it's sort of a cyclical interest. We've had different, whether it be national chains or franchises, come through here and again. So none of those really took hold over the years. That doesn't mean that this next round won't. Again, I think a lot of that is driven by this interest that we're seeing from new investors and people maybe looking for, maybe a simpler path toward, laundromat ownership. So I think it's going to be very fascinating to watch. And today's investor may have different things that they're looking for, out of the business. There's hands-on owner operators that are folks that are serial entrepreneurs. They got a lot of other different things going on. The conventional wisdom, which I'm not saying is right, the conventional wisdom is that, the laundromat business, can't afford, additional layers of management or can't afford, additional things chewing into the, into the revenues, when it comes to those things, because the lack of, which I guess you would call elasticity of pricing. Now maybe a store that's tremendous maybe does yield, 2 quarters, 3 quarters, 4 quarters more, but it's not dollars more typically. But what I do like about it is it continues to raise the bar, because at least what I've seen from franchises over the years is the traditional weak spot for the laundromat industry, which is the marketing and branding and advertising, are often the strengths of franchisors. So I think it's going to be very interesting to watch, and I just view it part of the overall trend toward multiple store ownership and just general interest in getting into the business.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it is interesting. I'm curious, and Brian was kind of mentioning this too, but I'm curious as if it will take off a little more this time around, just because the technology, and kind of going back to what Dave was saying earlier, the technology is more there than it was kind of in the previous go around of these franchising attempts. And so the management becomes a little bit simpler or streamlined a little bit easier. But yeah, I don't know. I think
Yeah,
it's
same
yet to remain
principle
seen.
apply. The technology benefits available to the single store owner, obviously get multiplied when you have 5, 10 stores, 100 stores. In terms of the ability to remotely manage, or not having to be there standing over every collection that you're making. Yeah, I think another thing to think about is, oftentimes, whether it's a chain or a franchise or something on that scale, it's based on economy of scale. And so when you look at the core of our business, rent, utilities, and payroll, are those things that tend to get you better deals the more you do. I think one of the things that maybe not strictly speaking is economy of scale, but in terms of ease of management, is that marketing, is leveraging that technology to make the stores more efficient. And so I think that's something that, again, whether you're doing it as an owner operator, building 5 or 10 or 15, or through a franchise model or something else, the nuts and bolts of the business are the same.
Yeah. I just want to point out real quick that Steve Andrews compared Dave Mintz to Michael Jordan. So Dave, I mean, there you go, man. There you go. And real quick, I know some of you guys weren't here in the very beginning, but I just want to let you know that Dave and I are doing our next one of these live Q&As on Saturday, February 13th at 5 o'clock Eastern time. So in case you weren't here in the very beginning, we just wanted to make sure you knew about it. Throw it in your calendar. Plan to be here. You'll be hearing announcements from us on all our different platforms and everything too, kind of coming up to it. But just wanted to get it on your radar. Saturday, February 13th, 5 o'clock Eastern time will be the next Q&A. Hey, Jimmy had a lot of really good questions. I know I've spoken with Jimmy before, and he is looking to get into the industry. So he's got a lot of questions regarding being brand new, but I was wondering if maybe you guys could give a tip to all the people who are here watching this or listening to this, who maybe are trying to buy their first laundromat. What maybe like 1, 2, maybe 3 things that you think are the most important things to kind of focus on for someone new getting into the business? Well, you want to tackle it, Brian?
Yeah, sure. I'll go first. And obviously there's a big difference in the set of advice between building a new store and buying a new store as your first time into the industry. But it's going to sound trite, but you got to do your homework. So often I see people that just don't take advantage of the information that's available to get this job done. So please take your time. Please do the homework. As I like to say, certainly when it comes to like membership and CLA and some of the things in our store, spend a few $100s before you spend a few $100,000. There are no shortcuts. Most common mistakes: undercapitalization, overpaying for an existing store, especially when that store needs to be retooled. And certainly, we talked about this a bit in our side conversation yesterday. You can recover from most every mistake you make in this business, probably with the exception of one, which is if the lease isn't right, it's really tough to bounce back from that. So you really got to do your homework with focus on those couple of items.
Yeah, those are good tips. Dave, you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, I got a few things actually. Just to let everyone know the dates and times that Jordan gave for our next event. I think that's going to be hosted on my YouTube channel, which is Laundromat Millionaire. So while we still got your attention, I just want to remind you all, we don't make anything on this. Our goal isn't to monetize this in any way. It's just to help the industry. If we're just going to ask one thing of you, it's just to subscribe to our YouTube channels, share the information with other people. Our Facebook pages and things like that's great too. All we want to do is continue to have an opportunity to serve the industry and to take the industry to another level, just one conversation at a time. So the more opportunity we have to have those conversations with people and to share information with them, we're able to do so. So we are advocates for the industry, but you are too. You guys wouldn't be here trying to get better. And it's not lost on me that some of the top operators in the industry are on here. And I know they're on here to help other people, which is appreciated, but I also know these people, and I also know they're on here to learn, because they're also passionate, obsessive people that are push the envelope, try to be better tomorrow than you were yesterday. And so, yeah, I really appreciate that. What was the question?
Tips for newbies. Tips for newbies.
Yeah, tips for newbies. Thank you. Yeah, so tips for newbies. I'm going to echo one of the things Brian said, and I don't know if he said it in these exact terms. I personally think it's a lot more important that you take your time and try to get an educational base in place. Brian said earlier, which I've heard it said many times, and I wholeheartedly agree with it, that this is not a complicated business. It's a simple business, but that doesn't make it easy. If it were easy, everyone would be killing it. Everybody would operating at a high level. We wouldn't have different percentages of the industry operating at different levels. If it were easy and anyone could do it. The problem is the people that approach the industry thinking it's easy, thinking all they have to do is collect coins and keep the machines working and keep the doors unlocked and things like that. But yeah, one of the things that I did right, and I did plenty of things wrong, but one of the things that I did right in the industry is I've always been pretty passionate about education and knowledge and learning. And, you can't fast forward 10 years and gain 10 years of information yourself individually. But what you can do is leverage resources, things like the CLA, networking events, white papers. This seems like a great time to plug this book. I did it on my Laundromat Millionaire page, and I'm going to do it again tonight. This is a product. This is a product of the CLA. If you go to the CLA store, you can purchase this. If you're a member, you get a tremendous discount. If you're not, you pay a little bit more for not being a member. But 11 years ago, I don't know what iteration it was. 11 years ago, when I got in the industry, this was one of the first things I purchased. Back then, I think it was black and white, if I remember. I think it was called Today's Coin Laundry versus Today's Laundromat. And I'm not sure how many editions of this have been out there, but if I had to point to one single resource, and this isn't even that thick, it's not that big of a book. This thing is packed. I mean, this is an MBA in Laundromat Ownership 101 from the beginning to the maturation process. And if you haven't read this cover to cover 4 or 5 times, it wouldn't take you, I don't know, it wouldn't take you probably an hour and a half to 2 hours to read through this. And so you can't tell me that you can be in a hurry to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, whether you're purchasing an existing store, building a store could be millions, or whether you're taking over a rougher store and borrowing and leveraging or investing your cash. The reality is, if you're operating at a high level, it's not a cheap business to operate in. It's very capital intensive. Mistakes are very expensive and very painful. But the reality is, you don't have to spend 2 or 3 years on your education. Depending on how passionate and obsessive you are about this, you can learn a huge amount of the industry by leveraging relationships, networking, and purchasing resources like this, memberships in the CLA, watching things like the Laundromat Resource Podcast, Planet Laundry Magazine. I could ramble on and on for hours and hours, and I've been doing this for 11 years, and I absolutely attribute that to a large portion of my success. So I don't know if I'm giving you one definitive thing, but really what I'm looking at is more of a big picture mentality is, yeah, you can hire consultants and the good ones are going to pay for themselves tenfold. And it's no secret that me and Jordan do consulting. And I'm not here to sell our consulting services, but the reality is that's just another example of being able to leverage somebody else's expertise, just like you're doing that with a CLA membership, just like you're doing that by purchasing someone's book or watching their YouTube channel. The reality is the information is out there, and it's maybe not as centralized as we'd all like it to be, The CLA probably does a better job of that than anyone in the industry, but the information's out there and it's really not that hard to find. And if you dig hard for a few months, the amount of information and the knowledge that you can gain, and I see it with some of my personal clients. I'll talk to them, I'll give them a few tips. A couple weeks later, we'll come back and jump on a call. And the difference in the education level that they have and the things we're talking about is astronomical, because I can tell that they're grinding. I can tell the homework that I gave them, they've done and done 2 or 3 times. So I think those things are more important than getting caught up in equipment pricing and some of the other things that are just not the focus, or shouldn't be the focus, in my opinion. I can overpay by 10 or 15% on equipment and it's still operate at the top of the industry very easily. Because, you know, a perfect example is people talk about there being limits to pricing and things like that. The limits to pricing, I charge literally 4 times the price of some of my competitors, 400 times higher pricing. But why do people pay that? They know the other guy's there. It's because I offer a higher value proposition. And that value proposition is a lot of times based on your education. So I don't know if that makes sense to everybody else, but it's how my brain works. It's how I've obsessively and passionately tried to learn this industry over the last 11 years. And I think you'd be shocked that if you have that mentality, I think you'd be surprised what you can learn in 2 or 3 months that would set you up for success and probably, if not eliminate, probably greatly minimize the lion's share of mistakes that you would make, and especially the magnitude of those mistakes.
Yeah, good plug. I mean, you already sold at least 1 book. Jason said he's buying one. So
there's some free stuff out there too, guys. Planet Laundry Magazine,
Yep.
you know, the gold standard in the industry. PlanetLaundry.com/subscribe. It's free. We have a digital edition. There's an app with all the archives. So there's an encyclopedia out there for the business. So you have no excuse. It's out there for you.
Yeah, there's a ton
Awesome.
of free resources. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. No,
I was just going to say the same thing again. Ignore me.
no, it's all good. I mean, hey, listen, I'm doing Laundromat resource. So if we're talking resources, we could just talk resources. I'm all about it.
Absolutely.
Brian, question for you from Stacy. She asked, actually, let me just read it. I don't know if you saw it, but she said, would the CLA ever consider some sort of buying group to try to get members better pricing on supplies? I'm assuming, well, maybe I shouldn't assume what supplies she's talking about.
Yeah.
I don't know. Thoughts on that?
So we tend to focus our attention on kind of the non-endemic items, like I said, the insurance, the human resources, the marketing, those types of things. When it comes to supplies and equipment, we do have some restraints as being a nonprofit, tax exempt organization, particularly one that's vertical and includes a lot of the suppliers as member companies. So that's not something that we've done or are likely to do in the future. So we try to look for other things that are sort of outside of the endemic products in the industry and look for other ways to bring savings to our members. I was just chatting with a member today who got a quote with our health insurance program that just launched, ahead of the open enrollment back in October, and saving $500 or $600 a month on their health insurance, even with adding dental and vision. So, there's a lot of ways to get savings, and we're just doing whatever we can to help that along.
Yeah, awesome. I'm just going to run through. There was a couple of just questions for some new people. I was just going to run through them. If you guys have something to say about these, stop me and we can chat a little bit more. But some of these are just pretty basic questions that I just wanted to get answered real quick while we're on here. Collecting cash for and being safe, doing it in a safe way. I think generally it's advised that you collect kind of at some various different times, maybe not necessarily a set schedule. Maybe counterintuitively to collect when people are actually there. It tends to be a little safer to collect when they're there as opposed to when there's not anybody there, because there's just safety in numbers. And I would say, definitely, be cautious, be aware of your surroundings when you're collecting money, and if possible, have an attendant there just kind of out and about while you're collecting and just kind of watching your back, basically. I don't know if there's any other tips you guys want to add, but just wanted to get that in there.
Solid. Good advice.
Yeah, absolutely
Okay.
solid.
Yeah. And then the other one, I would just say, somebody asked about how do you know how many machines to put in your store. I would say, hey, talk to your distributor about that and get with them. But again, kind of going back to it, make sure you have a good distributor, somebody who's actually providing value to you and helping you really think through this and not just trying to sell you as many machines as possible, because I've seen that a lot. So make sure you're interviewing. I'm just like Brian said, make sure you're interviewing distributors, and Dave mentioned this too, and find a good one to work with. Because if you're working with the best people, this is true everywhere. If you're working with the best people, you're going to have the best chance at having the most success, right? And so find great people to work with, and whether that's up the ladder, with your distributors, with your consultants, with your brokers, all that, or whether that's quote unquote down the ladder with your attendants, with your managers. Working with great people will make everything so much better, so much smoother, and so much more successful, in my view. Anything to add?
I'll add something there. I think that if I said earlier that, asking what brand should be the 37th question in your process, the number of washers and dryers ought to be the 48th question that you ask. There's an interplay there between demographic analysis, which is evaluating the market and whether there's enough business there to justify your investment. It also is an interplay with the competitive analysis, the other stores, both quantity and quality. The physical space, right? How much space you have available is going to have a lot to say about how many machines you have. And I've long been a proponent that we should stop talking about how many machines, and we should be talking about how many pounds a store is. It's even more important than square footage. How many pounds? In other words, take the capacity of all your washers. That's a 1,000-pound store, or that's a 2,000-pound store. When you look at the layouts of today, the much larger equipment that's favored in the mix, we have to even start talking about some of those basic metrics in a different way to reflect really what's happening in the business now.
Yeah. Do you guys have any input on? Go ahead.
Sorry. Designing and building out a store real quickly. Designing and building out in a store and fitting it with equipment is an art. And so you should be with somebody that understands how to read demographics, like Brian mentioned. You should be with somebody, distributor, consultant, doesn't matter. You should be working with somebody. If you don't have that education and you don't have the skill set to do that, to perform that thought process yourself, the art that is equipping a store, then you should be working with people that do. You should be working with people that are only interested in you doing two things. One, serving your community to the best of your ability, and you making money. Because those two things will solve it. Those approaching it from that perspective will solve a lot of problems for you. So I don't know if that makes sense to people, but we can get hung up and caught up in all the details and reading demographics, and those things are all important. Understand it's an art and it's not something you can teach yourself. So if you're working with a distributor, if you're working with a consultant, whoever you're working with that's helping you make these decisions, it's important that what they say to you, that they can explain not just this is what you should do, but this is why you should do it. And if they aren't focusing on what I call throughput, and that's just a word I started using, so they may use a different word. If they're not focused on throughput, then they're not focused on the right thing. And so that doesn't mean you can't work with them. Maybe you need to just reevaluate and restart the conversation. You don't have to run from them. But at the end of the day, when you're outfitting a store, it's an art, and you should focus on nothing but throughput, which is a big picture. It's like saying value proposition. Like that's a big picture mentality. And every decision you make should kind of fit into that mold.
Yeah, huge. That's awesome. Here's one. Do you guys have any opinion on 24-hour versus maybe set hours? I mean, my guess is it's going to depend, but you guys want to make any comment on that?
I think you let the market dictate, demand, let the demand dictate. So some markets are 24-hour markets. Are the other retail businesses open 24 hours? Do you have a lot of shift workers and people at odd hours? I think 24-hour stores can be amazing. And I know a lot of great ones that are out there. It's about 10% of the overall industry right now. Sometimes bumps up to 12 or 15%. but let the market dictate that. What I find with a lot of our members over the years is it's less converting the 24 hours and more converting to simply longer hours. So those shoulders on the day, the 9 or 10 p.m. to midnight, or that 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. American households have longer days than ever before. It's complicated. People need a little bit more access. And so, sure, you can go 24 hours and that could help you a lot, but also consider lengthening your hours to accommodate more customers.
Yeah, I think it goes back to what I said a minute ago. From the owner's perspective, whether to go 24 hours or not is a lot of times not an economic decision, because you very seldom are going to generate enough revenue. And I know there's exceptions, plenty of them, but generally speaking, you're probably not going to generate enough revenue to justify it. If you actually psychoanalyze the hours that you're open and the revenue you drive in that. But one of my things my mentors told me early on, because I used to have all 24-hour stores, and now I just have one. One of the things he told me is one of the biggest benefits is really hard to quantify of a 24-hour store. And he's a big proponent of them. And his point was preparing for the task that is doing laundry at a laundromat is a job in and of itself, meaning sorting the laundry, packaging it up, putting it in your car, loading up the kids, making sure you have money or change or credit card or whatever, driving to the store, choosing the location, and you haven't even started the task. And you're a lot of times an hour or two in, sometimes longer than that, as far as a time investment from a customer perspective. And so his proponency, if that's even a word, the point of his advice to me that I think was solid and still applies today was the last thing you ever want a customer to do is go through that entire process, get to your store, and find out last load was 5 minutes ago, because that's pretty disheartening. Now, the flip side of that is the beauty of this business, and any business, is we get to choose what our business looks like. And I also passionately believe that one of the worst things we can do in any business is try to be all things to all people. So when you try to be all things to all people, you end up being nothing to no one. So decide what your business model is, be good at it, be the best at it, be top of the industry. And whether you're 24 hours or not, it's what's best for you, what's best for your community. Brian talked about shift workers and things like that. Of course, all those things should be taken into account. The hassle factor, maybe you're a night owl, you stay up till 2 a.m. So if you get a call at 1 a.m. that somebody lost 50 cents, so you don't care, you're up. But if you go to bed at 8 p.m. and you get up at 4 a.m., then maybe that matters to you. And you do have to, I don't make decisions this way, but a lot of people do make decisions in effect of their lifestyle. And how does that business model affect their lifestyle? And I'm not here to tell you that's right, wrong, or indifferent, because I don't own your business and I don't run your business. But those are some of the factors that should be involved in those things. I ultimately chose to close my 24-hour stores other than one of them. And the reason that I did is, as I see, unfortunately, society deteriorating in a lot of parts of the country, I found that there were certain situations that were happening in my laundromat that were, no matter how obsessively I attacked them from a problem-solving perspective, I couldn't fix them. And at the end of the day, a customer coming into my store and me telling myself that they had the convenience of coming in at 2 a.m., but then they left at 2:10 because they felt unsafe, that's unacceptable to me. That was the straw that broke the camel's back, was the fact that I couldn't control that. And trust me, I did it for 7 or 8 years. So it's not like I didn't try everything under the sun. There's certain things that you have to accept. And if those things are acceptable to you, then that's part of your business model. That's okay. If those things are unacceptable to you, then you may have to make a decision to close.
Awesome input. Well, hey, let me just remind you one more time, Saturday, February 13th at 5:00 Eastern time on the Laundromat Millionaire YouTube channel is our next live Q&A. So get that on your calendar. If you haven't yet, go subscribe to Dave Laundromat Millionaire's YouTube channel. And a huge thank you to Brian. Thank you for coming on, sharing your wisdom, and just being available to laundromat owners to help us succeed. Like, you want us, it comes through. You want us to do well in this business, and you realize that if we're all doing well, we're all going to be doing even better, together. So really appreciate you coming on.
Well, it's been a lot of fun, guys.
Yeah, I'm gonna
having me and seeing a lot of my friends here in the feed. It's been a lot of fun to be with you.
Yeah, Brian, I'll echo what Jordan said. You know, when I reached out to you to see if you would do it, I would have completely understood if you had passed. But I knew before I talked to you that you would want to do it. But I wasn't sure if there would be conflicts and other things because you have so many different responsibilities. And I appreciate you being open-minded and even considering it. And I appreciate you trying to find a way to say yes when you could have quickly said no. And I appreciate you seeing that me and Jordan have a certain heart. We're just trying to bring people together, collaborate, elevate the industry, all of us together. And I appreciate you being a part of that today. And I'm going to say this too, that there's not an organization out there that has impacted my journey in the laundromat business more than the CLA. So if you're not a member of the CLA, I'm not here to sell anything. I passionately believe this. The reality is the membership fee that I have paid every year of the 11 years I've been in the industry, the fees that I've paid for videos I've purchased, the book that I have, my ROI on everything that I've ever paid to the CLA is astronomical. And don't forget that it's a nonprofit organization and they have paid staff obviously, but a large portion of the servants that are serving our industry are volunteers. So don't fall for this facade that they're just trying to get your money and they're trying to make money. Nobody's making any money. They can't. They're a nonprofit. They're just trying to serve the industry. I know these people. I consider them my friends. And if you're not tapping into this resource, you're the one missing out, not the CLA.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, guys. Well, thank you again. And again, huge thank you for the chat. I always think, I know there's a lot of wisdom happening here and here from these guys, but I always think the best parts of these things is the conversation happening in the chat where you guys are helping each other. You guys are giving, your numbers to help other people, assess their business, and you're giving your advice there. So really, there's a lot of wisdom happening here. Super cool to have Dave, the Laundromat Millionaire Men's, and Brian Wallace, CEO of the Coin Laundry Association, answering your questions. But the real gold is seeing the community that's being built, seeing the relationships happen, and seeing you guys help each other do better in this business. Because I really, honestly, I say this a lot, but I think that when we do that, we all end up in a better place together. So thank you guys for being a part of this. Thank you too, Dave and Brian, for being a part of this. We've got to do this again sometime. It was a lot of fun and a lot of really, really solid stuff.
Absolutely. I'm going to call it right now. I'm going to put Brian on the spot. This won't be the last time you do this with us. Okay.
Sounds good. Always available to talk shop, guys. Thanks again for having me. Appreciate it.
You got it.
All right. Guys. We'll see.
Let's keep driving the industry to a different level. Okay.
That's right. We'll see you guys February 13th. Don't forget, 5 p.m. That's a Saturday on the Laundromat Millionaires YouTube channel. All right, guys. See you then.
Got it. See you guys there.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah.